So coming up next weekend, we have an event that is taking place not in an abandoned warehouse, but in front of an arena full of people where fights should be taking place. And the main event is, of course, Garry fighting against Carlos Prates. I'm a little bit later to uploading this one, but there is a couple of reasons for that. The main one, I'll be honest, is I'm really trying to focus on the PFL this week. Did all of my tape study for the PFL, and it's just because I had a really bad PFL card last week. It just did not go my way at all. A lot of short notice guys, one that were called up on, I'm not even kidding, 3 days notice, and I just didn't predict those fights correctly. UFC 314 went very well though, went 10-3 on picks. Two of the notable picks that I got wrong were Dan Ige and Michael Chandler. And I did manage to pick Volkanovski to get the belt correctly, so I'm pretty happy about that one. But yeah, Dan Ige come to play. I mean, I picked Sean Woodson and Dan Ige won, sorry. And then also Michael Chandler, combination of things. Chandler looked a lot worse than I thought he would, but also Paddy Pimblett has improved so much, so got to give Paddy Pimblett a lot of credit there. Another thing as well, I guess I should mention before we get into the video, this card I feel like is got a lot of favorites that are going to win. I think that this is definitely what you would consider to be a favorite heavy card. For that reason, it means that my predictions actually do line up with a lot of other people's predictions out there. I think there are a lot of underdogs that do have opportunities to win, even though if I might not pick them to win the fight. I think we could see a couple of upsets here potentially, but overall, this is a card I feel pretty good about. I think it is a card which, unfortunately, the odds makers have probably lined quite correctly. And I think that also, another thing that I need to mention is, given the fact that we've got a week break, you need to consider this, because this is what always happens. When there is a 1 week break, it means that the people have more time to bet on the props that they want. They've got more time to bet on the money lines that they want. So a guy that might be minus 250 right now genuinely could end up being minus 500 come fight day. Like, that's how crazy some of the lines can get. So if you've really got something that you want to bet on, I do recommend doing it a bit earlier than normal, just because people have more time to bet on this. And then, of course, as well, if you wanted to sign up to the We Want Picks, website, you'd use the code AWESOME. I'm sorry, guys. A little bit of a brain slip there. I'm going to go through this card relatively quickly because, as I said, I think this is a very favorite heavy card. I'll tell you why I'm going to pick these fighters to win, and also, genuinely, I do think I'm agreeing with a lot of people. This one here is an interesting one to start off the fight card, mainly because I think that this is kind of the fight that you would put in front of the Apex. Chelsea Chandler versus Joselyne Edwards. It is a striker versus wrestler matchup. Chelsea Chandler is going to be at a big striking disadvantage in this fight. Edwards is a very good striker. Her takedown defense is okay. It has looked a lot better recently. In the past, it's been really, really bad. But it has improved. It has gotten better. She's now taking on Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea Chandler doesn't really set up her takedown attempts. She just uses her size and physicality to come forward and just kind of try and get a takedown up against the cage. Joselyne Edwards should be able to see them come in, should be able to score more points on the feet. Do I think that she should be a minus 205 favorite? I think she's minus 225 right now. I don't think so, because I do genuinely think that Chandler's got a path to victory with the wrestling, but I'm picking Edwards to win. I think that Edwards does win by scoring more points on the feet and getting more damage done. Now, Timmy Cuamba fights against Roberto Romero. The odds for this fight have come out. Timmy Cuamba is plus 100. Roberto Romero is minus 130. I think that this is actually a very competitive matchup, and I think that there is an argument for either guy to win, but I am going to be siding with Roberto Romero in this matchup. It does just come down to one thing, and that's pressure. Timmy Cuamba, what we have seen from him in the past, and especially in his most recent UFC fight against Lucas Almeida, and his first ever loss to Ivan Tenner, we have seen Cuamba really crumble to pressure before. He has given up before. He gave up in that matchup against Tenner. He just let Tenner win, to be honest with you guys. And then also against Lucas Almeida, when the time got hard, when Lucas Almeida was landing some big damage, Cuamba wasn't able to really fight out of that and really kind of try and make a comeback, kind of like Daniel Santos could have done against John Castaneda. And what Roberto Romero was trying to do against David Onama, despite having a very big skill disadvantage. And I think in this matchup, Timmy Cuamba is the more skillful fighter. He's a very technical boxer. He's pretty high volume. He doesn't have like super crazy one-shot knockout power, but he does have finishing ability. And I do genuinely believe that this guy is a prospect to keep your eye out for. However, maybe in hindsight, I think it might have been a little bit too much too soon. He is taking a big step down in competition here against Roberto Romero, though, who I will be honest, looking into the tape before he did fight against Onama on short notice, I wasn't very impressed. But one thing that I can guarantee Romero is going to do, and that is come forward, throw hooks, pressure against Timmy Cuamba, and we have seen that if you can pressure Cuamba, you can put him in some situations that he doesn't want to be in. So I am picking Romero. I'm not super confident in Romero, but I think for those reasons, I think we can see him pressure forward and land some pretty nice boxing combinations up and close. This is where my picks start to get a little bit more confident. I do genuinely believe in Jaqueline Amorim to win this matchup. This is going to be a good fight. All 9 of Jaqueline Amorim's wins have come inside the distance. All of Polyana Viana's 13 wins have come inside the distance, and Polyana Viana has only been to decision 4 times, and Amorim's only been the distance 1 time as well in her 1 loss. This should end up in a finish. I think it ends up in a finish on the Amorim side. Now, Amorim is very small for the weight class. She's listed at 5'3", but you are probably going to see a pretty obvious size disadvantage here for her in this matchup. And Viana has shown that she does have power on the feet. She did hurt Jinu Frey a couple of times before knocking her out very quickly. And also, Viana, you can't really sleep on her grappling ability. She does have a couple pretty nice submission wins in her own career. However, this competition is not the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion that Jaqueline Amorim is. I think that Jaqueline Amorim can go out there, get the takedown, and then find the submission early. I think that Amorim wins this matchup by first round submission against Viana. I think the fight gets down to the ground. What we've seen is that when Viana gets taken down, she doesn't really have much to offer when she gets taken down. So this is a good matchup for Amorim. However, maybe Viana can pull something off because she does have good finishing ability. 13 wins in the first round or second rounds, but Amorim's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. She's one of my most confident picks on the card. I think we can move on from this one. I like Amorim by sub, and I like her by first round sub. Now, Cameron Saaiman fights against Malcolm Wellmaker. This is probably a fight I'll talk about for a very long time, and it's because I think it's a close fight. I think it's a good fight. I think this is kind of like that sort of fight on the prelims, which a lot of people are split on. They're divided on with their pick, and also it's a fight that could be the main event of the prelims. This is going to be a good matchup. 2 prospect versus prospect matchup. Well, Malcolm Wellmaker now nearly 31 years old, but he's 8-0. UFC debut against Cameron Saaiman, who is a very good prospect in his own right. Only 24 years old and has had a couple of fights now in the UFC, of course. The pick is Malcolm Wellmaker, though, to win this matchup. I was very impressed by him on the regional scene when I was watching his fight. And then when he fought on the Contender Series, I become even more impressed by him. He looked really good against Adam Bramheld. Adam Bramheld, yes, you can look at him and he does have a pretty padded record, but Bramheld is a very good Muay Thai striker. It pretty much is the only thing that Bramheld does, and Wellmaker was able to beat him up and knock him out on the feet. Prior to that, we have seen Malcolm Wellmaker look pretty good with his rangy striking, that he has been pretty tall for the weight class, and he can wrestle as well if he needs to. Cameron Saaiman, he started out as a grappler in his amateur career, become a lot more of a boxer, I would say, and he started to strike a lot more. And then towards the more recent times in the UFC, we've seen Saaiman mix it up a lot more. We saw him mix up grappling a lot when he was forced to against Stephen Kozlow on a short notice matchup there for Kozlow. We saw him shoot for takedowns against Terrence Mitchell. We saw him shoot for takedowns, not really, but kind of, against Mana Martinez as well. And then, of course, he had a bit of a war with Peyton Talbot in a close sort of loss to Christian Rodriguez. I think in this matchup, I'll be honest with you guys, I think Malcolm Wellmaker can present some problems for Saaiman. Yes, Saaiman was landing a lot of pretty good shots in the combinations that he was throwing when he was fighting against Peyton Talbot. That matchup did result in Saaiman getting knocked out, but he did get knocked down by Talbot before. Saaiman was finding a lot of boxing success by closing the distance and punching in close. Malcolm Wellmaker fights in a similar way, where he does fight from range a lot with kickboxing. But I like from what I've seen from Wellmaker, man, I really do. I think that Wellmaker can use that reach advantage, that height advantage quite well. And if Saaiman wants to win this fight, I think he's going to have to try and make it scrappy, and I think he's going to have to try and get takedowns here. But from what I've seen from Wellmaker so far, He does handle range very well, and I think that he can go out there and get it done against Cameron Saaiman. I'm picking Wellmaker. I'm actually picking Wellmaker by knockout. I was so impressed by his most recent fight. I think he's going to look good in this matchup. Now, Damon Blackshear fights against Alatangheili, one of my most confident picks on the card. Damon Blackshear was a massive favourite. I think he closed about minus 600 against Cody Gibson. I am more confident in Damon Blackshear to win this fight than I was when he fought against Cody Gibson. So you're getting Damon Blackshear right now at about minus 350. I think come fight night he could be minus 400, minus 450 potentially with people parlaying him. Blackshear's going to have a big size advantage here. He's 5'10", but he's very wide for the weight class. Like, very wide 5'10". He's a very big guy. Against Cody Gibson, who I consider to be a massive guy at 135 pounds, Blackshear genuinely looked like the larger fighter in that octagon. So he takes on Alatangheili here, who is pretty small. He's a pretty big guy, you know. He does have, like, pretty big arms, pretty big legs. He's a wrestler himself. But I just think that if I really look at this matchup, the only thing that I think that Alatangheili can give Damon Blackshear some trouble in is in the striking. Damon Blackshear's striking is okay, but it's not amazing. We saw him get backed up by Cody Gibson. We saw him get knocked out by Montel Jackson. Alatangheili, I do consider to be a pretty solid kickboxer. I think he even is a little bit underrated. He's got a 5-2 UFC record. You don't get to 5-2 in the UFC while being not good, you know what I mean? But ultimately, I think this could be argued to be a step down in competition for Damon Blackshear. Blackshear's fought some good guys. I mean, he actually fought Mario Batista a week after fighting Jose Johnson. Pretty impressive stuff from Blackshear, and he has an argument to potentially have won that Batista matchup. But I like Blackshear here. Another thing as well about the Gibson fight is Gibson was taking him down, but Blackshear was able to reverse those positions, and once he got on top, Gibson had no way of getting back on top. So even if Alatangheili does get takedowns, which he could, because that's how Alatangheili likes to fight, he likes to pressure forward, he likes to get takedowns, he likes to control. Even if he gets those takedowns, he's not going to be safe against Blackshear. Blackshear can scramble, Blackshear can reverse positions, he can get submissions as well, he can get guillotines. He had that one arm guillotine in against Cody Stamen, turned it into the rear naked choke. Thank you, Bet Sam, for reminding me of that in our live stream today. I think that Damon Blackshear, I just like him. I really think he wins this matchup, so I'm pretty confident in him. I don't think I need to say too much more about that fight. Now we've got a banger, Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda. Genuinely same sort of situation as the Timmy Cuamba fight against Roberto Romero. Chris Gutierrez is the more technical striker. He's a good striker. He's proven that so far in his career. He's beaten some good guys. He's lost to some good guys. But when he's lost, it's always been in the same situation. It's been because he's been getting backed up. He's getting pressured. And in my opinion, when he gets backed up and pressured, which happens nearly every single fight, he doesn't look like the same guy. And I do actually genuinely find this quite interesting to see that Chris Gutierrez isn't a bigger favourite in this matchup. I thought that maybe the public or even the betting odds guys, the bookies, would have made Gutierrez the favourite, just kind of considering a couple of things. He's coming off a win, albeit a short notice win over Kwang, and he's beaten the better guys. John Castaneda is coming off a loss, and he's coming to the loss to Daniel Marcos, who's pretty good, and he did give Marcos a pretty good fight, but I don't know, I just thought that the public would have been way more on Gutierrez in this fight. But the matchup tells me Gutierrez is going to back up. He does back up a lot. And in my opinion, when he's pressured, when he backs up, he does not look like the same guy that John Castaneda, he doesn't look like the same guy that's pressuring forward, moving forward, and doing his own thing. Kwang was able to back up Chris Gutierrez, and I don't think that Chris Gutierrez looked all that amazing in that matchup, I'll be honest. And that was a short notice Kwang who just went and lost to Zhao Long. And Zhao Long beat Kwang in the striking, and I've never considered Zhao Long to be a good striker, but I'm getting a little bit off topic here. John Castaneda, we know what he does. John Castaneda, he comes forward, he likes to box, he likes to brawl, and he will make it scrappy. He can shoot for takedowns, and he does shoot for takedowns on occasion. It's not the biggest part of his game, but it's something he can do and will do very likely against a striker. A pretty solid technical striker in Chris Gutierrez here. We have seen Castaneda find a pretty good success against similar opponents. I would make the argument that Daniel Santos is a similar opponent, and although he lost that matchup, Castaneda was beating up on Daniel Santos for a long period of time before Santos just managed to become invincible because he's a Charles Oliveira minion and get that comeback and that knockout. But I think that ultimately it's going to be a war. It's going to be a battle. Castaneda's going to be coming forward. I think he's going to be landing the bigger shots, and I like him to win this matchup by decision. I'm picking Castaneda. Never mind, the public's on Gutierrez. I want Castaneda. He is dead even. Maybe he's the underdog by the time the fight rolls around. I don't know. Now we have Ahmad Hassanzada fighting against Evan Alder. I really like Evan Alder in this matchup. I don't really know if I can pick a prop though. Is it Evan Alder by knockout? Is it Evan Alder by decision? Is it Evan Alder by submission? I'm picking Alder by KO, but I could see it going all 3 rounds, maybe, and maybe a submission for Alder. Ahmad Hassanzada, in my opinion, what he is best at is grappling. And I think aside from that, I think he has a lot of flaws. He's pretty tall for the weight class, but he's not super well built. He's a pretty big guy. The striking defense doesn't really exist. The takedown defense doesn't really exist. He's got a lot of heart though, man. The chin's okay, but he's been knocked out a few times. He's taken a lot of damage throughout his career as well. The best win on his record, in my opinion, isn't the Dylan Mantello win on the Contender Series. I think it's his submission win over Chasen Blair. Chasen Blair's a very good grappler, and the fact that Hassanzada was able to submit him is very impressive to me. He got a comeback win over Aliko Sagliani. I didn't think that he looked good in this matchup whatsoever before he ended up getting the 3rd round finish. Evan Alder's skillful, man. Evan Alder had a striking match against Nazim Sadikov where he ended up getting cut and it was a doctor stoppage. You could argue that Evan Alder was 1-1 going into that 3rd round, or maybe you could even argue that Alder was about to win that fight in that 3rd round as well, potentially, because Alder was looking good. And MMA math here, I'm doing MMA math. Nazim Sadikov did so much damage to Hassanzada, man. I think honestly, like, Hassanzada's a tough guy. He's got a lot of heart. He's got a pretty cool story. A feel-good story now that he's in the big show. But man, he's just not that impressive to me, I'll be honest. And Evan Alder, kind of sort of same situation. I've struggled to get good reads on him in the past, but he does have talent. He does have pretty good grappling. He does have pretty good striking. And I think in this matchup, it's going to be that striking that's going to be the main one. Hassanzada is a bit wild on the feet, not very technical. A striking defense just doesn't exist. It just doesn't. So I think that Evan Alder can go out there and get the knockout against Ahmad Hassanzada here. Now we have a matchup here. Matt Schnell versus Jimmy Flick. An odd fight because apparently Matt Schnell was retired and he's come out of retirement to fight against Jimmy Flick at 125 pounds. You know, the last fight is at 135 against Durden. It was short notice, but you know, still, why isn't this fight at 135? Because Flick's probably going to retire as well. Matt Schnell, I thought he looked pretty good against Durden in that 1st round. Defended some takedowns, was landing some pretty good strikes on the feet, ended up getting hurt and submitted, which is just kind of Matt Schnell's career. We all know now that Matt Schnell's chin is gone. He's got no chin at 125 pounds. That's a big, big problem because guys aren't super powerful, but you cut in. I'm going to guess that Matt Schnell himself cuts a lot of weight to make this weight class. And it's just not good. It's just not good to be in a division where everyone's super, super fast and you don't really have a chin to be able to deal with shots that are coming your way. However, luckily for Matt Schnell, he is fighting Jimmy Flick, who just is not a natural striker at all. Looks very awkward on the feet. Doesn't have amazing striking defense. Doesn't have amazing takedown offense. And he's a pure grappler. That's really all he's got. Is pure grappling, but Matt Schnell was a good grappler as well. If you look at Matt Schnell's career, yes, he's lost quite a few times, and yes, he's lost a lot recently. Look at these losses, though, man. Cody Durden is on the rise at the moment. He's looking pretty good, and that was on short notice for Durden, I believe. But Steve Erceg got a title shot after beating Matt Schnell. Mateus Nicolau, a top 5 guy at one point. Brandon Royval, the #1 contender in the world right now, and he's got a win over Suma Eji, who just got a win at UFC 314. Oh look, a loss to none other than Alejandro Pantoja, the guy that has beaten everybody in the weight class. I think that we're going to see Matt Schnell look good here. I know I just went on a tangent for absolutely no reason. I apologize. It's just as simple as this. I think Matt Schnell can run around the cage and pop jabs, pop 1-2s, pop leg kicks at Jimmy Flick, and eventually get a KO. He should be able to defend the takedowns. He should be able to just not shoot his own takedowns here. I think he knocks out Jimmy Flick. I spent way too long breaking down that fight. I apologize for that one, guys. Let's move on. Ikram Aliskerov versus Andre Muniz. Price tag's too wide. And I'll be honest, I'm getting priced out of this fight. I don't think I'm going to put money on this fight for the simple reason of, where's the value? They've taken it from us. Ikram Aliskerov is minus 650. Why? Why is he minus 650? Yes, Aliskerov is the better striker in this matchup. And yes, I do believe that Aliskerov should be able to defend the takedowns of Andre Muniz. However, if Aliskerov decides to shoot takedowns, that's where the fight could get a little bit interesting. Muniz, though, at this point is 35 years old. He's slow. We know that he's a very talented grappler. But he's slowed down. He's not the same guy anymore. He hasn't fought since 2023. A year and 4 months ago, and before that, you know, he got knocked out by, ground and pounded by Paul Craig, and then submitted by Brendan Allen. He's slowed down a lot. He's 35. Aliskerov's the next big thing. I know he did get knocked out by Whittaker, but he took that fight on like 2 weeks' notice, man. I don't want to take too much away from him. Before that, wasn't fighting the best guys, but he did beat Phil Hawes, who has no chin, but is a good wrestler. I think Aliskerov can go out there, be the better striker, but, I mean, the price tag is ridiculous, isn't it? It just is. And Ikram Aliskerov by KO, Ikram Aliskerov inside the distance, I don't think that you're going to get a great price on that either. So I think we've been priced out of this matchup, unfortunately, but I think Aliskerov gets the knockout against Muniz. Now we've got Randy Brown versus Nicolas Dalby. Everyone's on Randy Brown. I am picking Randy Brown. I want to make this clear. However, I am not that confident in Randy Brown. You know, I don't look at this matchup and think, yeah, Randy Brown should be minus 205. Randy Brown should be minus 225. Yes, he should be minus 250. Dalby's still a talented guy, and he was on a win streak not that long ago, and the loss that he just had was a close loss to Renat Fakhretdinov, and before that he beat Gabriel Bonfim. Before that he beat Muslim Salikov, which you could argue is a somewhat similar matchup stylistically. Yes, you're just going to point at this matchup here. Randy Brown knocked out Muslim Salikov. I'm aware of that. But that was after Dalby beat him, you know, and Dalby is a pretty good karate striker. He does shoot for takedowns as well. He's not really the most exciting guy, and he somehow is fighting very well at the grand age of 40 years old. But Randy Brown's not super young. Randy Brown's got a pretty big range advantage here. He does have a good jab. He does have good leg kicks. I think what this fight is going to look like is Randy Brown is just going to be able to defend the takedowns of Dalby, and I think that Randy Brown has a striking advantage here because of the skill set that Randy Brown uses. It's long range tools. It's the jab, it's the cross. He's got a 78-inch reach. He's 6'3" for the weight class. He uses all of those sort of skill sets very well, and he does kick at range quite well too. So I think that Randy Brown can go out there and just outpoint Nicolas Dalby to a decision. However, I can see Dalby really making it close in this matchup. You know, Dalby does like to move forward. He does like to throw volume. He does like to shoot for takedowns. So yeah, I'm picking Brown, but I'm seeing a lot of guys very, very confident in Randy Brown. And I have to be honest with you guys, I don't share that same level of confidence. We move up to Michel Pereira fighting against Abus Magomedov. I like Michel Pereira in this matchup. Abus Magomedov is a very talented fighter. I've always said this about him, even when I picked Sean Strickland to beat him nearly 2 years ago now. Abus Magomedov, you watch him fight, and even you watch him fight in the Sean Strickland matchup, he's a very technical striker for middleweight. Against Strickland, he was throwing spinning kicks, he was throwing very nice body kicks, head kicks. He was looking pretty good out there, I'll be honest. And then he gassed out. He's worked down on that cardio, though, quite a lot. He got out-wrestled by Kaya Baralho. Just recently got a pretty big win against Bruno Ferreira in the third round. Showed that his cardio is a bit better. Showed that he can push it a bit later on in fights. However, you can't ignore what Michel Pereira has been doing in his last few fights. He did get smoked by Anthony Hernandez in his last matchup. But in the first 3 minutes, he was doing the smoking. He was beating the crap out of Hernandez. And then he just gassed out in 3 minutes. Somehow managed to completely gas out in 3 minutes. So I don't know how he did that, considering he's in incredible shape. He's moved up from 170, but that's what happened in that fight. Before that, though, early finish against Ihor Potieria. Early finish against Mikhail Olokchechik. Early finish against Andrei Petrovsky. Before that, he was fighting at 170. Was meant to fight at against Wonderboy. I think that we're going to see Michel Pereira go out there, look good against Abus Magomedov. This guy's in a phenomenal shape. He's fast. He's very, very fast for 185. And I think he's even going to be faster than Abus, who I consider to be a very technical, fast middleweight in his own right. I give Abus Magomedov a lot more credit than a lot of other people do. But I still think that Michel Pereira is going to come out here and finish him. So I like Michel Pereira by early finish in the first 2 rounds against Abus Magomedov. I think he can get that KO win. Now we've got Giga Chikadze as the underdog. I am picking Giga Chikadze as the underdog to defeat David Onama in this matchup. And it does come down to what I believe that Giga Chikadze is really good at and the way that David Onama's fights. David Onama fights in a very similar way to Giga Chikadze, at least in my opinion. I know that Betsam disagreed with me when we did the live stream today, but when I look at this fight, I think it's a pretty good stylistic matchup for Giga Chikadze. David Onama is also a very long striker. He's got very long legs. He's 5'11" at 145 pounds, and he does use those tools pretty well. However, I think Giga Chikadze does use those tools a little bit better. When I watch David Onama fight, I think that this striking at some moments looks pretty awkward. I think it was this matchup against... No, it definitely wasn't this. It was definitely the Roberto Romero fight, I think. Even though Roberto Romero was doing the pressuring in that matchup, I thought that Onama was looking somewhat awkward in moments. He did have to deal with Romero's just kind of come forward, bombing away style, but Onama did look pretty uncomfortable in moments there. Onama as well, we have seen him have pretty bad cardio in the past. It was against Nate the Train, of course. That was the kind of the birth of Nate the Train. Onama's got a lot of power, but to get a KO, you've got to land the shots. And Giga Chikadze, I still haven't seen Giga Chikadze kind of look like he's going to be super, super washed. Yes, he's nearly 37 years old, but and this is what Betsam, I'm just going to quote Betsam directly here. I'm stealing his quote. I'm stealing his lines. Betsam said in the live stream today that we did that he looks at analytics a lot more than I do. I look at fights. I just pick fights based on the matchups. But Betsam was saying about, if you look at the analytics, 36 years old at 145 pounds is the age that a lot of fighters begin to fall off, and it's time to start fading them, this and that. But I didn't think that Giga Chikadze looked that bad against Arnold Allen. Yes, he lost to Arnold Allen. Yes, he crumbled under the pressure of Arnold Allen. But there was a 36-year-old Giga Chikadze in that matchup, coming off a 1-year layoff after beating Alex Caceres, which... I'm going to make the comparison, a somewhat similar stylistic matchup to this one. Yes, David Onama is so much more aggressive and so much more powerful than Alex Caceres, but Caceres, just like David Onama, is a tall, talented kickboxer. And Giga Chikadze was able to win that stylistic fight, and then before that, of course, it was when he got the absolute brakes beaten off him by Calvin Kattar. I think it comes down to this. I think Giga Chikadze isn't going to get boxed up and pressured by David Onama. And I think that Giga Chikadze is going to find a lot of success with those kicks. Chikadze, we know that his hands aren't very good. We know that David Onama's hands are good. We saw him knock out Gabriel Santos with a clinch uppercut. We saw him knock out Gabriel Benitez. Maybe he's got a thing against Gabriel's. And Giga and Gabriel, kind of similar names, I guess. But where was I going? David Onama, he knocked out Gabriel Benitez with a very, very impressive boxing combination KO. But I think Giga Chikadze, I just saw this matchup made, and I thought Giga Chikadze, I looked into the tape, I'm on Chikadze. He's my underdog pick. And just to kind of ruin it, aside from the main event, he's the only underdog pick on the card. But I like Chikadze. I'm picking Chikadze to win. The public's picking Chikadze. That was a shock to me. I just highlighted that like I always do, and then there it was. Now we move up to Anthony Smith versus Zhang Mingyang. Full disclosure, I have known about Zhang Mingyang for a pretty long time. I would probably say a longer time than most, because I was watching, where was it, the first season of the Road to UFC. Road to UFC, I would argue, is a bit more popular now than it was when they did the first ever season. I think a lot of people either just didn't care about it, didn't know about it, or probably those two options, I guess. But I cared about it, and I watched it, and I saw Zhang Mingyang beat Tuco Tokos as a plus 400 underdog or something like that when he knocked out Tuco Tokos. Very, very impressive win there in that matchup. And then he's fought in the UFC. He's got 2 first-round KOs. And not only does he have 2 first-round KOs, he is on a 8-fight first-round knockout win streak. A lot of these over pretty low-level guys, but I mean, you can't really... Is it longer? No, it is. It is an 8-fight first-round KO win streak. It's pretty awesome, I will be honest. But, you know, he's taking on Anthony Smith now. Anthony Smith, I mean, I know he's... This is a tough one for me, because I'm going to put my hand up and say the pick is Zhang Mingyang. But I just have a really bad feeling about this fight, man. I know that Zhang Mingyang is in Bitsam Slam, and I do agree that Zhang Mingyang should win this fight because Anthony Smith is done, but here's the thing about Smith. If Smith chooses to wrestle, he could have a shot here. I have never seen Zhang Mingyang grapple. I've never seen it. Even when I was doing some tape study before the Tuko Tokus matchup, I've never seen his grappling. I've never seen him wrestle. I've never seen him head to defend a takedown seriously. I've never seen it. So I have no idea what Zhang Mingyang's going to look like if Anthony Smith takes him down. But here's the problem with Smith, man. He just doesn't shoot for takedowns. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but he just doesn't. And Anthony Smith's grappling is the best part of his game. Is Mingyang Zhang a trap? At minus 600, I think he is right now. Is that a trapped line? Like, am I going crazy trying to find something that doesn't exist? Because this is Anthony Smith's retirement fight. So, is the UFC trying to send Anthony Smith out with a passing of the guard matchup with Zhang Mingyang, who has the potential, in my opinion, to become a star? You don't see guys at light heavyweight size from China very often at all. And Zhang Mingyang has very, very good boxing. And it is much better striking than Anthony Smith. But Anthony Smith can grapple, man. That's the thing. He does have good grappling. Just doesn't shoot for takedowns. That's his biggest problem. He just doesn't shoot for takedowns. And the chin's gone. And the chin is gone. I've got a bad feeling about this one. I do. I'm picking Zhang Mingyang by knockout in the first rounds, but if Anthony Smith wins by submission, this is going to be one of those fights where I'm like, man, I really just should have picked Smith. You know, I should have taken the risk. I should have taken the potential public shame of picking a plus 400 underdog. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, am I looking for something that doesn't exist? Is Zhang Mingyang potentially a trap line? You know, does Smith have a real shot at submitting Zhang? I've never seen him grapple. I've never seen it. Like, full transparency, I've never ever seen Zhang Mingyang grapple. This is an MMA fight. It's not a kickboxing fight. I'm picking Zhang. Smith's got a shot though. For real. Like, I genuinely mean it when I say that. Then we've got the main event. I kind of hinted my pick by saying that I'm picking another underdog. I am picking Carlos Prates in this fight. I really like Prates. I just do. And I don't know if you guys want to know a history lesson about Carlos Prates' career or not, but I'm going to give you a history lesson on Carlos Prates' career with the help of Betsam's knowledge as well that he mentioned when he saw an interview. Carlos Prates, as we all know, incredible Muay Thai striker. And if you look at his early career, you know, he's getting some wins, but he's losing a lot of fights by submission. Why is that? Because he was a Muay Thai striker that just didn't know how to defend takedowns and didn't know how to grapple. But he was getting some pretty sick KOs. And then, what I believe happened, I don't have confirmation about this, but I believe happened was we had a little bit of a situation called COVID-19. Hopefully I'm not demonetized for saying that, but in the period of 2019, late 2019, 2020 to late 2021, all of a sudden there was a big switch in Carlos Prates' career. And just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he could defend takedowns. So I strongly believe that he spent this 2020 to 2021 time period working on his takedown defense, because the takedown defense that he showed in these fights and the takedown defense that he showed in this win streak are completely different fighters. And we have seen that, I believe, in some moments of his career, because we haven't really seen guys try and take him down all that much. I believe Mitch Romero's got a takedown on him. Neil Magny went 0 for 7 on takedowns on him. But yeah, that's a history lesson on Carlos Prates' career. And the rest is, of course, what we've got today. Carlos Prates has looked good every step of the way in the UFC. He fought Mitch Ramirez. Ramirez was a short notice replacement opponent, if I do recall correctly. Prates, I think, was meant to find an even worse opponent originally. Am I correct in saying that? Yes, they were going to sacrifice for No, 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 they won't. No, they won't. No, they won't. He would have won this fight, though. He would have won this fight. But anyway, in the early fight. Carlos Prates, Muay Thai striker. We know that. Went defended 7 for 7 takedowns of Neil Magny's attempts and even managed to get a reversal and get his own takedown as well. Pretty awesome. Knocked him out. Looked so sick against Li Jingliang. But that doesn't matter. It's a matchup against Ian Garry. And Ian Garry is a good fighter. He's a very good kickboxer from range. He is going to be slightly taller than Carlos Prates, which is going to be interesting, just kind of given the fact that Carlos Prates relies on his range, in my opinion, a lot when he does fight. And Ian Garry has been winning fights recently implementing the grappling. I think that you can really look at the Jeff Neal matchup and the MVP matchup, and those were fights where Ian Garry, they were close, but Ian Garry was trying to implement some grappling and was able to get those decision wins there. And it was really the grappling that won him the MVP fight, I should say, because MVP was looking good on the feet. And here's the thing. MVP and Carlos Prates, I would argue, fight in a somewhat similar way. Yes, MVP is like a lot more sort of like gimmicky, a lot more sort of Kevin Holland sort of striking. You know, when he's talking, he's dancing, he's like doing the thing. You guys know what I mean. But Carlos Prates fights kind of like that too, with the hands low, with the Muay Thai style, with the straight shots, a lot of straight punches for Prates. And I think in this matchup, the more dangerous striker is Prates. We've seen Ian Garry get dropped before. He got dropped by the GOAT Song Kanan, and he even got hurt as well by one of the first fights he had in the UFC. Where was it? Jordan Williams was hurting him on the feet as well. So we know that Ian Garry can get hurt. He can get hit. Jeff Neal made him look pretty human as well. And then Shavkat. He had a very close fight against Shavkat, I will say. Now, Shavkat, I thought, won the fight. I don't think anyone really disagrees that Shavkat won the fight, but it was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, especially considering Ian Garry took the fight on short notice, and now he's taking this fight on short notice. So, kind of shout out to Ian Garry for saving these cards, man, for real. But I think that this is a matchup which, so far from what we have seen, I know that Neil Magny... Here's the thing, though. In all seriousness, Neil Magny's takedown offense, how much better is Ian Garry's takedown offense than Neil Magny's, though? Neil Magny is a 41 fight veteran, a multiple time UFC fight veteran. I think he's won the most fights in welterweight history, or most decisions in welterweight history, or something in the UFC. Magny's an MMA veteran. How much better are Ian Garry's takedown entries than Neil Magny's? Because I'd like to know. Because I think that Carlos Prates can defend most of Ian Garry's takedowns as well. I know Shavkat towards the end was getting put in some tough positions by Garry in the grappling, but you know, Prates' takedown defense so far, it's held up. I think it can hold up against Ian Garry. Now, I will admit, there's not that much evidence of it holding up against Ian Garry, and I did say this in the breakdown of my Neil Magny fight, remember? I said, listen, Magny is smart. Magny's going to shoot for takedowns, and he did. But Prates defended all 7 takedowns. All 7 of them. And I know that in Garry, you know, he's fought way better competition in his career. He beat Neil Magny. He actually smoked Magny. But so did Prates. So I think this is a good matchup. I think it's a striking fight for the most part. I think the most dangerous guy is Prates. And I'm going to pick Prates knockout. That's what I'm going with. So give me Prates by KO. I think he gets it done. Now, if Garry wins, I think it would very likely be a decision, maybe even a submission, because I think that it would be because Garry can get the takedowns going. Now, that's not me disrespecting Garry's striking. That's just me thinking that Prates is going to hit harder in this matchup, and it's going to require Ian Garry to get the takedowns to, I think, win the minutes, to be honest. Because I think that Prates is going to win the minutes on the feet, but Garry could potentially win the minutes on the ground with the wrestling and grappling. So let me know what you think in the comments about that one. Did I do a poster review? I don't think I did. I like the poster. I'll be honest. It's not a poster that I would hang up on my wall, personally. I think that it's a bit intimate for me. I'll be honest. The guys are... They're looking longingly into each other's eyes. You know, this doesn't look like a stare down sort of photo. And you've got the stars in the background. Like, it looks... It's a bit romantic to be hung up on my wall in my bedroom. I have to admit. But I think that the poster itself... like, pretty cool, pretty basic, but it's pretty cool. It's kind of got, like, a space theme to it. I can respect that. I can respect us going for different themes, trying to do something else. But, yeah, just kind of, that's the knock I've got on it. Or is that just kind of me, like, being odd? But that's just, like, because when I look at a poster for a poster review, I look at a lot more in depth than just like looking at the post and saying, oh, that's a cool poster, oh, that's not a good poster, this, and that. I look at it and I was like, man, these guys like they're looking at each other, you know what I mean? And then it's like, if it didn't say welterweight belt, I would think this was a poster for something else. That's all I'll say. I'll leave you with that. Yeah, that's it. As I said, I think the card's gonna have like potentially a lot of finishes. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.